Welcome to the Money Class Podcast, a podcast made by students for students. Few are taught the fundamentals of finance and money management in high school and universities. This podcast will tackle the need for non-business students to learn more about this topic with the goal of helping them become more dependent and financially literate. Welcome to the pilot episode. All right, Marc. Well, I'm just going to introduce myself to everyone. My name is Kosta. I am a second-year student at Concordia University. I double major in economics and English literature. And yeah, I'm really passionate and interested about the world of business, entrepreneurship, storytelling, the arts, and I kind of want to find a way to combine all of that together. How about you, Marc?
That's cool. Yeah, so for those who know me, who don't know me, my name is Marc. I'm a third-year student at JMSB at the John Molson School of Business studying finance. And I'm interested in the world of investing, of the world of private equity, everything kind of in that capital markets world is something that's very interesting. But also taking that knowledge and then breaking it down to students in high school and CJEP in university who may not be as passionate about finance like people like you and me, Kosta. I think it's great to take that and then teach it and explain it in a way that's so much more informal and so much easier to understand. So hopefully we'll be able to do something like that in these podcasts. For
sure. Well, more specifically, how do we get started with this idea? Like, tell them a bit about our involvement with penny drops, and I'll tell them about my experience with penny drops.
Yeah. So I think I started seeing about a year ago. I went to a few events that Penny Drops was hosting, that the McGill chapter was hosting. And it was financial literacy month. So there was a class on budgeting, another one on investing, on credit, 10 money hacks. And that was while I was doing my internship at Galliant, which is a small hedge fund here in Montreal. So needless to say, I had a relatively good understanding about the world of finance, investing, but I wanted to see how that was being translated and how that was being explained to students who may not know anything about that. You think about students who aren't studying in business, how is this information being taught to them? And I think that, when we went to that event together, I remember it was like a November night. It was probably the first snowfall. We had like our shoes on and we're running to make it to the event on time. And it was great. It was fun. They had a Kahoot. We had a good time, met some people who are like-minded, who want to learn about finance. And then from there, you joined Penny Drop first, if I'm not mistaken. And then I kind of followed in your path a few months later and I joined the Penny Drops as well. And this semester we're giving classes. I gave one last week, and hopefully we'll be able to give more in November and the subsequent months.
For sure. Well, my experience with Penny Drops, I came on board right when they were actually founding the chapter at Concordia, and I was kind of interested because of the fact that it was very much related to just the business world, and I just wanted to get myself out there in some way, anyway, really. And financial literacy at first, I remember reading this book. I think it was in the summer of 2018. It was called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And there was all the typical, I think what is it called? The Babylon? I'll tell you right now, it was a good book. I have it right here. I think it's called The Richest Man in Babylon. And those are typical finance books people start reading when they want to get into this world. And it taught me a lot.
But was it complicated finance? Was it complicated finance?
No,
or was it digestible? Able to understand easily.
Super easy to understand, made for the masses. It was my first experience with just reading about finance, and that's what got me into it. And I'm like, okay, Penny Drops kind of does the same thing, but does it through a more formal way through mentoring students in high schools. And that was my first introduction to that stuff, and I just really wanted to dive more deeper into that world. And man, it's been a great experience. I remember in December, January, talking to students and seeing what they knew and what they did not know. I was honestly a little shocked at how much people don't know because they don't have these classes in the universities and high schools.
There are things that you would think are so intuitive, so common sense, and you realize that oh my God, people don't know how interest is compounded. It's sometimes I talk to people and I say, dividends, capital gain, these are things that we learn in our first week in business school. And to someone say, wait, what's capital gain? What are dividends? How does that impact my investments? I find that baffling that the education system is lacking what is fundamentally, rooted in our society, right? You could be a very hard worker working 40 hours a week, 60 hours a week, right? and you could be poor. But that makes no sense, right? There's so many opportunities. Just, the fact that people have thousands of dollars in their checking account or their savings account is mind-blowing, right? You're losing 2% per year just on inflation. So you're actually getting poorer every year you keep your money in your account.
That's very
At that
true.
point, put it under your bed. At least you'll have some bragging rights. It's going to do the same. Honestly.
Well, I like to use the example
you
whenever
keep your money under your bed, Kosta?
No, I invest everything, and then the only thing I have to say for savings account, it's really good to have an emergency fund and have your money savings in a savings account because it's easy to withdraw whenever you need it, like off the bat. So it can have its benefits, but for some things, not all things.
Yeah, a certain amount, but even then, you want to be making at least 1%, 2%, like a savings account. There's so many different types, and you could have special savings accounts, right? So like a GIC or even like a treasury bond, a government bond, let's say, which is gonna yield 1%, 2%, which is 1 or 2% better than you would in a checking account, and probably 0.5% to 1.5% better than in a savings account. So as soon as you do a little bit of work, you're able to make considerable, well, not much, but a little bit more money.
I totally agree. I totally agree on that. And I remember with students in high schools, the one thing I kept on, it's a typical example, but it's like, and it's also the first rule we teach people, spend less than you make, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's like, if there's a new iPhone out there, it doesn't mean you need to go buy it. If the one you have has been working really well and does the job, it makes no sense. I think those are very small, simple rules that can then make you to think, it gets you to think more about other things you can do to save more money and spend less, but be more smart about it. It doesn't mean you have to eat noodles all day and not necessarily enjoy your life. There are times where I think you love, let's say you love fashion, Marc, and you like
Which I don't,
buying
but
really
continue.
expensive. Someone out there
Everyone
likes
has something that
fashion,
makes
and
them
they
tick.
Exactly. And they love buying really expensive shoes and just clothes, pants, whatever it is. You can make it so that you can spend a lot on fashion because you like it, while also maybe finding other ways to save money by not buying a really expensive car because you don't necessarily care about cars, or by living in a more modest house because you don't necessarily care that much about your living space as much as, say, someone else who really wants to buy a really beautiful house, a bigger house, whatever it is. So I think there are ways like that where you can, still enjoy your life without overspending.
Well, it's a question of what you prefer, right? So, I'm someone who's very into cars, right? That's kind of what makes me tick. Now, I wish I had hobbies that were less expensive, but, I don't spend on clothing very much, right? This is a $7 Old Navy t-shirt, which I have about 12 of them in my closet. I've got black, I've got gray, I've got white. That's 90% of what I wear, and that's 90% of what you guys are going to see. But that's like one thing that I don't spend money on. But then I have other things that I really like, right? So like when I work on my cars or going out to a restaurant with some friends, like that'll go 100%. But there's other things that doesn't interest me, so I don't have to keep up with the Joneses with everything, right? Like I know you dress better than me. I'm not going to try to compete, but I'm more into cars than you, and that's fine, right? We end up appreciating other people's hobbies without necessarily having to one up everyone, right? Because I could one up you in fashion. I could one up another friend in their travels. I could try to one up everyone in housing and in cars. At some point, the only person who's going to be one up is the bank towards me.
I agree, dude. I totally agree. That kind of brings me to a point I want to make about credit cards. Because I feel like when people think of spending, they think of credit cards or line of credits, whatever it is. And although there are a lot of great things, that I love credit cards if you know how to use them correctly and responsibly. Yeah. But most likely than none, a lot of people use them in a way where they get into massive amounts of debt. They pay 20% interest on stupid things, whatever it is.
30, 40%. 30 to 40% on credit cards is crazy. When you compound it annually, astronomical.
And it affects more than you think. It doesn't just mean that you're going to pay more money. It affects your credit score. Do you want to tell them a little about credit and what that is? What is a credit score? How does it affect your future?
Well, yeah. So a credit score is essentially how much a bank trusts you, right? So I'm 18 years old. I want to buy a house for $500,000. I go to the bank. They're saying, who is this guy? Right? Who's this guy? Who's this girl? Why should I trust them? Right? And rightfully so, they're not going to trust you. If I'm walking on the street and someone comes up to me and asks me for $20, do you think I'm going to give it to them? Yes or no? No, obviously, right?
I mean,
well, it's the same thing with the bank. Same thing with the bank, right? You ask me for $20, Kosta. We have a trust relationship, right? I paid for your dinner, you paid for my dinner. Sounds like we're going out now, but we go out to a movie. I'll pay once, you'll pay once. It's like we're going out. But that's because we have a rapport, we have a trust. We've been building a credit. We've been building we've had different transactions with each other. So as a result, when you ask me, hey Marc, I need $1,000. I want to buy a camera to start my YouTube channel. And I don't have much money, but I'll pay you $100 every month for the next 2 years, for the next year and a half. And I'll be like, sure, yeah, no problem, Kosta. Here's, send you the transfer. If I have the money, I'm going to do it to you because we have trust. We have credit. We have a credit worthiness. So that's the same thing with the bank, right? So at 18 years old, it's a bit hard to get big loans. But what you can do is get a little, credit card, $500, $1,000, $2,000, relatively small limits. But it's a bank you're starting a relationship with the bank so that when you're going to be asking for $15,000 for a car, $150,000 for your first condo, $500,000, hopefully you could buy a private jet one day. Hopefully the bank will be able to trust you with $10 million. But it's when you start small, you're able to build a credit. And when you build a credit, the bank trusts you more. And they're able to give you more money for a lesser rate. Right? So if I have two friends, one that pays me back half the time, another friend that never pays me back, or one that pays me back all the time and one that pays me back half the time. The one that I trust more, I'm going to say you don't have to pay me as much interest. You're not as risky to me. So I could give him a lower interest rate, maybe not with friends, but that's it with a bank. Versus, the difference between a 2% and a 4% interest rate may be small, nominally, so the number you see, but on $500,000 for a house over 25 years, we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars that you're saving or that you're spending more just because you didn't want a credit card at 18 or you wanted to wait 5 years.
This is exactly why I asked you to explain it. You're so good at explaining credit card.
You were against credit card, Kosta. I remember I was like 18, 19, we're going out. Kosta's using his debit card. He's using cash. Kosta, explain why were you doing this?
Okay, so it's because I was afraid of credit cards. I every time I saw people use credit cards, I just saw it as like a debt machine. Because I know that a lot of people just don't know how to use credit cards, and I feel like I was going to be trapped in that cycle. You know what I mean? So after a bit of back and forth with just myself and kind of just doing more research on the topic, I started to realize how credit limits work, the types of credit cards you can buy, how the fees work. There are annual fees, purchasing fees, there are benefits. All of that kind of got me to realize that if I am responsible and if I really take the time to learn about this subject, I can find a way to make it benefit me in the long term. So what I did is that the very first thing I did, and I think any student should do this, is go out and get yourself a student credit card with whatever bank you're at. Every bank has a student credit card, or it's like their base credit card, no annual fees. Very simple. A small credit limit. It can be $500, $1,000, just something to get you started and to help build your credit history. And there are benefits too. You can get points, maybe let's say scene points where you can go to the movie theaters and watch movies for free depending on how much you buy with your credit card. Sometimes they give you extended warranties on products. Say you buy yourself a computer. There are so many good benefits, but the big thing is you want to build your credit score and pay it off on time. Say you get a $500 limit on your credit card. Tell yourself that you'll only use 30% of that credit card per month maximum, because that'll help you build your credit score, and at the same time it'll help you be more. It's almost like a discipline thing. If you tell yourself something and you try and hit that goal every month, you'll get to a point where maybe down the line, you'll build that. It's like a muscle you're building. Does that make sense? But your credit card, treat it as a debit card, right? Like, I'm never going to spend more than what I have. That makes no sense. I just think, my debit account, I look at it, every once in a while to see, to make sure I have money inside. But, I'm talking about my checking account. But, my credit card is 99% of 100% of my daily transactions are through my credit card. Every month I have an automatic payment, so it just takes from my debit card.
from my checking account. I don't have to think about it. But I'm not here spending, $1,000 every weekend buying Gucci, Gucci clothing, because like I don't have the money. So why would I spend more than what I have?
Exactly.
It's so tempting.
I totally agree.
It's so tempting, but you have to say, I don't have the money. I'm not going to spend it. Like, it doesn't make sense. Unless if you have a way you're going to pay it. But that's a different subject.
Exactly. But you mentioned something really interesting there, the automatic payments. I think that's a great way to just manage your money without having to think about it. Because I feel like, we're humans. So obviously, we might be super motivated one day and we're checking our bank accounts, making sure everything's paid off. We're doing whatever is needed. But other days we're just not there. We're busy. Something happens. We're not looking at that stuff. And it can kind of like, it just won't be on your mind. And you might miss some payments, which is not a good thing. I think automating your money through your bank accounts makes it so that you are responsible without having to think about it, which is such a big thing for students. Altogether, what I do personally, I have my checking account. Everything goes through my checking account. Any payments, anything I have, and then
Netflix,
I'll
Spotify.
automate it. So exactly.
Okay.
No, Netflix and Spotify, I put that on my credit card. But what I do is that my checking account will send money to my credit card to pay back the let's say $10 I use to pay for a Spotify membership or a Netflix membership. I have my checking account to automate some money to send some money into my investing account, which is with Questrade. It's not with the banks. So all of that stuff works together, and I don't have to do anything. I just have to check it once or twice a month, make sure everything's working well. I'm not, there aren't any red flags for whatever reason, and I'm good to go.
Yeah, but that's what you need to do, right? Netflix automatically takes money from your account every month, right? Why can't you do this? Why can't you pay yourself every month? You're okay with paying these multinationals. Why can't you pay yourself?
I tell myself this all the time. I have to treat myself like a company. I need to pay myself. I always need to do that. Otherwise, all my money is going to other people. And that's not necessarily going to help you save money in the future. If you have, say, as a student, you're making $300 a week, and that comes into your bank account every Thursday. Take 20% of that amount or 10% of that amount and put it into an investing account or a savings account, whatever works for you. I would recommend investing. It's just investing accounts are the best, like a tax-free savings account. But that is the best thing anyone can do to save money right now. Yeah. Even though you might be making a little bit, a little bit can go a long way in the future because it is compounded too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So like the average, like if you take a relatively safe investment, so the S&P 500, which is essentially a market index. So it's pretty much taking the 500 largest companies in the U.S. and then pulling it down into like kind of one index so you could see the price. Essentially you're seeing the movement of the 500 largest companies every day for, any trading day, any business day. In the last 10 years, the S&P 500 has, if I'm not mistaken, has increased at about 15% year over year, compounded, in total from 2000 since the financial crisis to today. It's 15% per year. At 10% per year, compounded, which is less than what the S&P, what the market is doing, you double your money every 7 years. 10% is not a lot, right? Like 10%, you go on the market, you get you buy shares of Apple, of Facebook, of Amazon. These are techs. You get into pharmaceuticals, get some Johnson & Johnson. Like these are these broad indexes that you buy. It's like one trade that you do. Every 7 years at 10%, you double your money. And at 15%, the advantages are that much better. So it doesn't make sense to me.
Compared to a savings account, which is like 0.5%, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is. Yeah. It's a big difference.
But then, of course, you got the risk with investing. But, if you believe that the economy will continue, if you believe that people are still going to go and buy stuff online, or, if you believe that people are still going to live their lives, then there's no reason, and you believe that population is going to grow, then there's no reason for you to be pessimistic about the market or about the economy on the long term, right? 6 months you could have a crash. 2 years you could have a crash. Yeah. But in the long term, we're talking about 5 years, 10 years horizon, which, what is so pressing that you need your money in 6 months, right?
Exactly. Recessions happen, but it goes up and down, up and down. Right now we have a pandemic. The stock market was hit really hard in March. Now things are kind of, going back to normal.
It's exactly,
there might be
it's
another
higher
hit,
than
but
it was.
That's fine.
it's higher than it was in March. It was higher than it was in before it crashed in March.
But even then, if there is another hit, that is okay. Because in 7 years, 10 years, whatever the case is, the stock market will be much higher than it is now. It's proven that it always goes up long term. So, yeah. There's no reason to worry, I feel.
Yeah, of course, short term it may be difficult, but long term. In January 2008, before the Great Recession, before the mortgage back, before the big recession in 08. Let's bring everything down to $100. Let's imagine the S&P was $100. Okay, a year later, the S&P was worth $50. So that $100 stock was now half the value, right? You're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to jump off a cliff, right? If you kept that $100, it went down to $50. Today, that's worth $240.
Exactly.
In the 12 years,
it's crazy.
From trout to peak, or even from before the crash to today, you would have over doubled. You would have done 250%, 150%. Sorry. So
yeah, it's
it makes.
Go ahead.
No, but that's what you have some ups and downs, but in the long run, you're going to come out ahead.
And yeah, exactly. And I feel like people don't understand that you don't need to have millions of dollars to invest into the stock market. Everyone can do that. You can invest $100 and start with that and just automate some payments into your investing account every here and there whenever you can. That start with whatever you have. Even if it's $5, $10, okay, maybe not 5 because there's like some fees involved, but like whatever you have, you can start investing $100. Start investing with that. In the long term, you'll be happy because you're also learning. It's not necessarily only about making the money, especially now we're students, right? As students, losing $50 or $100 or $500, it might hurt a bit, but it's fine. You're learning. You're gonna make a lot more money in the future. So don't be too scared to lose some money. Hopefully, don't be too scared to lose some money now because it's you're learning from that. You're learning from your mistakes. I think that's really important to talk about. How
you want to treat the small sums like if it was big sums, right? Because that's
exactly.
At the end of the day, whether you're trading $100, $1,000, or $10,000 or $100,000, you're the same person. So your habits are going to be the same, right? So it's just a question of scaling your operations when you have more money. But at the end of the day, you're doing the exact same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And that kind of brings me to a point I want to make about like losing money and stuff like that. A lot of people right now are in a space where, especially students who didn't necessarily have the like financial education of any sort and are in a place where they have a lot of debt right now. Maybe it's student debt, maybe it's just debt because they didn't know how to use a credit card, and that happens. And I think it's really important to say that we are talking about investing, but the very first thing anybody should do when they have debt is to pay off that debt before they start investing or saving some money on the side, because the interest on debt is brutal. Pay that off first, then do everything you need to do to make more down the line. I think that's really important to mention.
But it's a question of seeing, what's the worst type of debt that you have. So like a credit card debt, pay that off immediately. You're 30%.
Exactly.
It's robbery.
It's crazy. It is. It is.
After that, student debt is not that bad. It's relatively low interest rate. Like what I did, like even a student line of credit, they're 1%, 2%. They're not very high interest rate, so it's not that bad. If you have $10,000 and you have the choice of paying down all your student debt or investing it, I'm, I guess, more of a risk taker. I think that better to make 10% than to pay off something that's only costing me 2%, because I'm going to be coming out 8% ahead, right? So that's what I'm doing now. So I guess if you're going to go into personal story quickly, so that was a CERB, right? So the Canadian student benefit, the Canadian benefits, exactly, for people that got hit by COVID.
When they were giving out $2,000 a month during the pandemic, you're talking about like a few months ago.
Exactly. Yeah, so I got roughly $10,000 out of that, but I also lost my job. I was working. I ended up taking classes over the summer, but anyways, I qualified and I got I got the money. So now I had a certain amount that I had an option. What can I do with it? Do I invest it? Do I go buy a car? What do I do? Right? So I was in the market for a car anyways, right? And I'm still a student, so I have access to a student line of credit. So what I did is I went to the bank, I opened a student line of credit, $10,000 for, I think it's like 1.5%. Like it's a very low interest rate until 1 year after I graduate. So what I did is I took the 10,000, I invested in the market at stuff that are very safe. We're talking about banks, we're talking about mix, but we're talking about indexes, banks, stuff that are, in 5 years they're going to be ahead than they are today. Maybe in 6 months, no, but in 5 years they'll be ahead. So what I did is I'm essentially leveraging my money. Now this is again a bit of a risky situation, but I took out a line of credit, and every month I'm paying down the interest and a bit of the principal, but it's like a 1.5% versus what I'm making on the market is like 10-15%. Right, so that's a bit of a risky situation that I'm doing but at the end of the day, I still have an asset. I have a car that I could sell. Like I wouldn't do that and buy yourself, which an asset. Granted, a car is more of a liability, but I wouldn't go buy clothing, because if ever you need to pay back the CERB for 10 grand, and all you have are some clothing, these are a bit harder to sell. They're not as liquid as assets, as tangible.
I would argue though, like assets and liabilities, I want to go a bit into that. I feel like cars, clothing, they could be an asset.
Expenses.
But you say that it could be an asset, like collectibles. I'm saying like people who make a lot of money and buy collectible cars, but even clothing. I know a lot of people who buy, let's say, a really popular or like a hyped up
like hoodies
Jordan shoe or hoodie Supreme, like all of these high-end brands. You buy them for like $200 for a pair, and then you sell it for $600 or $1,000 a few months down the line. That happens. That's an asset for sure. But don't treat cars, clothes, all of that stuff. Don't treat it all as an asset. It's more likely than none a liability.
The liability. That
means it's making you spend money. It's not making you make money. You know cars. You understand cars. I'm sure you knew exactly what you were doing. Line of credit, taking the CERB money, figuring it out. A lot of people, though, they take a lot of risk with that stuff. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to the everyday person.
No, that's true. No, you have to have a good understanding to do that. But as soon as you have a bit of knowledge about how credit works and how investing works, that's why the opportunities are so much fun. It's because I'm able to invest my money. I can have a car at a very low interest rate that I could pay back. Right? I'm able to enjoy my life. Now we're assuming that materialistic objects are going to. We're not saying that materialistic objects are making it that I can enjoy my life, but I'm able to live not above my means, because I'm able to pay for it. If I needed to pay back the loan tomorrow, I could do it. But I have options, right? And that's what credit allows you to do. How many people could go and buy a house outright? Not many people, right? But the fact that you have credit, the fact that you're able to take out a mortgage, means that you're able to afford something that you may not be able to pay up front.
I totally agree. It's a matter of being cautious about what you're doing and really knowing what you're doing. I always tell people, educate yourself. The internet it's literally a big encyclopedia for everything you ever wanted to know. Granted, you need to make sure that what the internet is telling you is actually real and makes sense, because a lot of times, especially in the finance world, business, all of that stuff, it's a big affiliate link. I hear that a lot. I see a lot of YouTubers who talk about this. They'll recommend a lot of stuff, affiliate link. So a lot of people on articles, YouTubers, they'll recommend a lot of different things, but a lot of the times it's because they're sponsored and they want you to go open an account with a certain bank or a certain investing company just because it makes them money. So just make sure you read as much as you can about the topics. Canada, the government of Canada, on their website, they have little lessons.
Yeah.
What is mortgage? How do I go about this? How do I buy a house? They give you a step-by-step process explaining it to you. So I think that's really important. Make sure you educate yourself.
Yeah, and there's even and even going back to the bank accounts we were talking about earlier, there's a website, I think it's FCOB, a bank account Canada. If you write that on Google, I think it's FCOB, if I'm not mistaken. And it essentially helps you find the type of account that works best for you. We're talking, right? And all this could be done. You go online, you put in your details, you're a student, you want some interest, you need your money in 6 months, you want it to be available now, you go through a process, it takes you a few minutes, and then they say these are the best bank accounts you could open at the best banks. Oh, there you go. and from the government. So you're not actually, they're not getting a kickback. They're not getting money from these banks, or you would hope not. But it's the government educating its constituents, right? And we pay taxes to a government, so we're allowed to reap the benefits, especially in education.
Mm-hmm. Well, that brings me to a thing like websites. I would recommend for you to just like find all the different options that are provided to you in your certain location, especially in Canada. There's ratehub.ca. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
They help you compare rates, I would guess.
So yeah, you can go on RateHub. Say you want to open, you want to check mortgage rates. I don't know, savings account, like what kind of, especially savings accounts. What I like to do is that I'll go there, I'll check all the different savings accounts available in Canada, and I will open the highest. What is it called? I'll tell you right now because I have it right in front of me. They're called like momentum high free savings accounts. It's not like, it's something like that, where it's like savings accounts that are like 3, 4, 5, more like 3%, 3.5%, compared to say like a regular bank, which would give you like a 0.5 or a 1%. And I'll open that up. And then it goes with time. Obviously these things change, but my point is I can get all the information on one page and then figure out which one I want to go with.
Yeah.
That's a big one. RateHub, there's something called Greedy Rates, I think. A bunch of websites like that people should check out. It's really fun. Because we did.
But isn't it complicated to be moving your money like from bank to bank?
No. This was like, let me rephrase it. It's more of like a one-time thing where I'm like, okay, let's see what bank gives me the better benefits or the better interest rates, and then I'll kind of keep my money there. Obviously, if like another bank offers a bit more, I will not necessarily like go with that bank. But this applies to investing accounts or whatever it is. It's just finding the one that works best for you, figuring out which one gives you the best offer, and then just going with that and kind of sticking with it, while also maybe checking here and there to see like what the competition offers. It just helps you be more educated, I think. That's more of what I'm trying to say. Education more than
sometimes
anything.
And sometimes your own bank even has some specials for like, for new customers, and you could be like, wait a second, I'm your loyal customer. How come you're not giving me the same thing as the new customers? So, speak to your financial advisor, speak to the people at the bank whom you work with, and if you work with no one, that's fine. That's a relationship that you could start and you should start. But you're saying, look, there's these new people that you're giving these good rates and these advantages to. Why can't I get the same thing as your loyal customer? Right? Because you're a customer of a bank, remember? Exactly.
You're a customer. A customer. That means you are essentially their product, as bad as it sounds. But it's a two-way situation. Like you both benefit from each other's business.
Yeah, because they're taking your money and they're letting it to someone else, and one day that someone else is going to be you. So, and if you have a good rapport, you have a good relationship with your bank, it'll be much easier to get a better rate, better loans, better mortgages, and save you some money in the long term, right?
Yeah, I remember when a few times I didn't know exactly what to do with my money, and I didn't know who to talk to. This was, I remember a few years ago, I would go to my bank and they would schedule an appointment with a financial advisor, and they would tell me everything I needed to know. So if you want personal one-on-one, advice
for free,
whatever it is, for free, banks offer that. Just go, call them. They'll schedule an appointment with your branch. It's really great, and I really recommend that to anyone. So yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Other than that, I want to talk about. I'll pause this. Let me take a quick break. I'll cut this little part out right now. What do you think so far? How's it going?
That's great. It's great. Let's continue. It's fun. I have my coffee Baileys.
Okay, good. I just wanted to see where we were at, or how we're feeling, to make sure that to go about it. Do you have any questions so we can kind of skim through the questions?
Not really.
This is the pause where I'm gonna cut this whole bit out.
No, I know. I understood. Heavy questions. Well, do you have any other topics that you wanted to discuss?
Yeah, I was gonna mention taxes and tax brackets, because that's. I'll say what I have to say later on. I just want to say that. And what can be interesting? Hold up. Yeah, the big thing is taxes, tax brackets. I was gonna mention the whole American Express Visa MasterCard thing, but yeah, exactly.
We can make the taxes another time, because I think it's like a whole other subject.
All right, what we could do, it's 1:02, it's been like 4 minutes. We can cap the podcast at like 40-ish, or you want to go the whole 60-minute hour thing?
I think like 30 minutes is pretty good. 40 minutes is pretty good.
Perfect. Yeah, so what we'll do is right now...
So it's getting a bit long.
Yeah, I agree. Right now, what we could do is figure out one last topic to conclude, so it doesn't end abruptly. What can we talk about after that? What did we talk about again? What was the last thing we said?
We spoke about Rate Hub and moving your money from bank to bank, and then we spoke about financial advisors.
Okay, financial advisors.
Oh, okay. I know what to say. Okay, perfect. We can talk about financial planning.
Okay, because you finished talking.
And then that goes with compound interest.
Okay. So I'll mention financial planning. What were you going to say exactly?
Well, if you want to start saving for down payment on a house in 5 years, in 10 years, you want to start saving, talk about the compounding effect of your money and how the earlier you save,
Okay.
Talk compound interest. Compound interest with tax planning. Oh, tax planning. Tax planning is another fun subject. With financial planning.
Okay. So we'll get right into it. Okay, so we ended. All right, and that brings me to the topic. Okay. So another thing I kind of thought about, or we both okay. Another thing we both kind of talk about a lot is compound interest and kind of like financial planning. But it's more about the world of compound interest. That's what I want to get into. You want to tell me a bit about it? Because I know you love that. You love that subject. You explain it really well. Go ahead.
It's very simple. So the idea of compound interest is that when you start accumulating interest on a certain principal, on a certain base amount, that interest is now added to your base amount, and the year after, you're making money on the money you've made. Let's go a quick little numerical example will be much simpler. So you've got $100, right? You've got a 10% interest rate, okay? That your $100 is going to be growing every year. Keep it simple. After 1 year, you've got $110, right? 10% times 100 plus the 100 you had at the beginning, you've got 110. Now you've got $110 on which the 10% is being applied to. So that 110, a year after, 10% of 110 is $11. 110 becomes 121. Okay? My math is right. 121, 10% of that now for the year, your third year. So the 121 is 121. So that's $12.50. $12 and some change. So now at the end of your third year, you got $133. Right? So in 3 years, your 100 became $133. So that's essentially the idea of compound interest, is that your interest is growing.
Well,
is growing, and you're making money off of that.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that. Well, it's not.
Cutting.
It's more the wording I wanted to use. Sorry, I think cut. Anyways, the word I wanted to use is your money is making money, which is making money. So it's like you're having your money work for you. That is what I like to say. You're not the only one working. Your money's working for you too. It's like an employee. As weird as it sounds, that's kind of what it is. Because the interest you make on that money will then make you more interest in the future. That's compound. It's exponential. It's kind of what we talked about before when we said that in 7 years you'll have doubled your money in the stock market because that's money is compounded, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it's important to speak to a financial advisor and a financial planner, because the earlier you start, the more impact that money's going to have in the long run. Right? So you're going to have had 1 extra year of compounding. And don't think about $100 compounding. Think of it when that $100 becomes $300-$400, and now you've got compound interest on your compound interest for years and years and years. If you start, the difference between starting at 20 versus 25, let's say you save $1,000 a month or $100 a month, let's say, the difference is huge just because you started a few years before. And it's bigger than the cumulative amount of your of the money that you're dispersing, than the money that you're coming out of your pocket to invest and to save your money, thanks to the effect of compound interest. And that kind of goes with and Kosta, you said you've spoken with some financial advisors. Why would it be important? What's the difference? Do you know the difference between an advisor and a planner, financial planner?
I mean, from what I understand, because I have heard of the two, it's like a financial advisor, for me at least, it's more of a thing where I'm like, I want to be I'll Google something, I'll kind of get an idea of a certain topic, but then I'll go to a financial advisor and make sure that my facts were correct. Financial planner is more of a, hey, here is what I have, help me figure out a way to just make sure my money works well in a given situation. That's what I've always understood between the two. Would you agree?
Yeah, of course. And if we want to buy a house in 5 years, right? Let's say we want a condo in Griffintown for $300,000. We need 5% cash down for principal residence. So 5% of that is $15,000. I've got 5 years to accumulate 15 grand. I have my financial calculator. I could calculate how much you have to invest. Okay, I'm going to get it.
Oh, he's going to do it.
One sec. Let me get it, okay? So let's say we're going to have let's say we're going to be a bit more conservative, okay? So
I just need to tell the audience, Marc, Marc, you're like the math wizard. Every time you give examples, it's like pulling up with the numbers. I love it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to prove to you what I'm saying is not like BS. What I'm saying is 100% accurate. Okay, so let's say 10%. Go ahead. 10% is good. We'll say 8% to be happy, to be safe. Okay, 10%. Let's say you're skeptical. You're a bit conservative. 8% per year. Okay, so 8% per year. We've got 5 years? 5 years. Okay. You want to have $15,000 and you're starting with $0 today. Okay. Per month, you have to save $200. That's all you need. $204.15 per month. So that in 5 years, you got $15,000 at an 8%, at an 8% rate. $205 times 60, which is number of disbursements. You've essentially, out of pocket, you've spent $12,300. You've taken out $12,500. But thanks to the world of interest, right, that's actually worth $15,000. Thanks to the world of compounding interest. So you've essentially got $3 grand for free, just because you decided to start a bit sooner.
And again, that's crazy and it's amazing. But let's just also kind of, as a side note, a lot of people, especially students, don't have that money or are not making that money, especially at times like these. But that doesn't mean, again, like I said before, you can't start with what you have. A bit. Yeah. It can be as little as possible. It's fine. These are just numbers. These are example numbers. It's fine. But yeah, I just wanted to use that as a side note. But yeah, it's crazy.
Costa, but $205 a month. $205, okay, at minimum wage is what, $12.75 an hour? That's 16 hours. Like that, divided by 4, that's 4 hours a week. You're working minimum wage job. Minimum wage, $12.75. 4 hours a week, that's going so that in 5 years you could buy yourself a condo for $300 grand.
If you put it like that, I think that's a great deal.
I totally agree. That's the crazy part. Is that the earlier you start, the more you'll have access, the more capital you'll have, the more options you're going to have in the future.
Yeah, if you put it that way, a lot of people can save that money if they just sacrifice, say, on their daily coffee at Starbucks or whatever the case is too. It is, especially the way you put it. It sounds very simple, but yeah, it's possible. That's what I want to go with. It's how do I say this? It's sometimes I feel like, again, personal opinion, but sometimes I feel like we kind of make it sound like we don't have money, when in reality, if we look at where we spend our money through our statements, we can find ways to save it through. Especially, we're 21. We're very young. Students are very young. Yeah. We can go ahead and eat noodles here and there, so we don't have to buy. So we can save a little bit of money to buy a house in the future. If it means sacrificing a piece of steak here and there for some noodles, I think it's totally worth it.
Yeah, and you brought up Starbucks. You see, that's a point. But if everyone has something that makes them tick, right? So if they really like their coffee in the morning, or they like their frappuccino when they're done their day, right? So if that's the reward you're giving yourself, I think then go ahead, right? Enjoy your Starbucks, but also be conscious that maybe you shouldn't get the Starbucks and the Louis Vuitton bag in the bag, right?
Yeah.
Maybe, well, okay, they're different price points, but like, make a little sacrifice. I'm not talking about a big sacrifice, but
Whenever you go
goes a long
somewhere,
way.
you don't use a car, use your metro, the metro. It's different things like that. It's
yeah.
Because you're right. It's prioritize the things you like while sacrificing in the things you don't care as much at. That's exactly what we said before.
That's
Yeah.
We should quote that, put on a plaque. Sacrifice what you don't like.
Put it on a T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. No, but honestly, like, keep what you like, right? Don't, if you really like going to the Marcus on a Friday night, right? Go out with some friends. You like going to Beatrice and having your Italian, having your dinner with your friends or with a date, and you do that on your Friday night, go ahead. But maybe you don't need to have, Starbucks in the morning and another one in the afternoon, 7 days a week.
I totally agree.
Every day.
And I totally agree. And with that, I just want to wrap up this first pilot episode. Do you have any final thoughts, any final one-liners, T-shirt one-liners you want to give out to the people?
Yeah, so we're talking about, we just finished with compounding, right?
Yeah.
Money, we always have a tendency to prefer what we have now than in the future, right? I'd rather have $100 now than $110 in a year, because what's the $10 difference? And I'd rather have the immediacy. But money tomorrow, thanks to compounding, is worth so much more than money today, right? Mm-hmm. If you are able to part with immediate satisfaction, that satisfaction, if we can attribute utilities, let's say, or satisfaction units to it, is so much greater in the future if you're able to invest your money and just hold off on your impulses, right? If you could hold off a 5 on 10 satisfaction today for a 10 on 10 satisfaction tomorrow, I think you're in business.
That's great. I love it. And I'll end with this very simple one-liner, straightforward. Spend less than you make.
Yes.
Put that
definitely.
on a plate. Tell everyone you know, spend less than you make. You will be much happier. You won't be in debt. And yeah, that's mine. With that,
That's
I just
good.
want to
True.
finish this episode. Yeah, exactly. I just want to finish this episode. This is our pilot episode. We hope everyone who listened through the whole thing enjoyed it. We'll be making more episodes in the future, so feel free to subscribe wherever you're listening. Feel free to like us on YouTube. Feel free to do all of that stuff. Support us, share. We love all of the support. My name is Kosta, and
My name is
your
Marc.
name is... There you go. And we'll be back for episode 2. Thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Money Class podcast. If you enjoyed listening, make sure to subscribe or follow. See you next episode.